Welcome to the Storyteller. Find a comfortable place, take a deep breath, pour yourself something warm, and allow yourself to step into another world. Here on The Storyteller, stories are more than words on a page. They are journeys through love, heartbreak, mystery, hope, and the hidden corners of the human spirit. I invite you to slow down, listen closely, and let your imagination paint the scenes before your eyes. Whether you're here to relax after a long day, escape into another life for a little while, or simply share in the magic of storytelling, you are welcome here. So dim the lights, settle into your favorite chair, and let the story begin. The quiet back roads of East Texas, where dirt roads stretch for miles and old wounds never truly heal. One young woman must decide whether to remain trapped by the past or risk everything for a chance at freedom. This is the story of Tessa, a girl abandoned by her mother, raised by an aging alcoholic father, and haunted by love, loss, and the weight of staying where she feels she no longer belongs, from a broken homes to late night drives beneath Texas skies, to the roar of engines carrying people toward hope or heartbreak. Fast Car is an emotional Southern drama about survival, family, forgiveness, and learning how to move forward when life leaves scars. Sit back, close your eyes, and take a ride down the long dirt roads of Livingston, Texas. This is Fast Car, Chapter 1. The Sounds Behind the Wall. The farmhouse always sounded different at night. Sometimes the old wood creaked beneath the weight of the wind. Sometimes crickets sang outside the windows. Sometimes rain tapped softly against the roof like fingers drumming in the dark. But on the bad nights, the house sounded angry. 8-year-old Tessa lay curled beneath a faded blanket in her small bedroom while voices exploded through the thin walls. "Where you been?" Willie Earl shouted. Tessa squeezed her eyes shut. Her mother's voice came next, tired and defensive. "I told you, me and Ann went to get drinks after work." A loud smack cracked through the house. Then came a scream. Tessa jerked upright in bed. "Stop it! You drunk!" Denise shouted as she tried to get away from him. The fighting moved across the living room floor like thunder. Tessa covered her ears, but it never helped. Nothing ever drowned out Willie Earl when he got angry. "You gonna tell me who he is?" Tears started to flow in Tessa's eyes. The bedroom door suddenly burst open. Her mother stumbled inside, crying, clutching her cheek. Denise collapsed across the bed beside her daughter, while Willie Earl stood in the hallway, breathing hard. For a long moment, nobody spoke. Willie Earl turned and walked away. Denise curled into herself and cried. Tessa reached over with tiny, trembling hands and rubbed her mother's back. "Don't cry, Mama." The next morning, the dirt road leading to the farmhouse, a sports car was roaring up the road. The car came into the driveway, kicking up dust. Tessa stood on the porch watching her Aunt Sonia jump from the driver's seat. "Come on!" Sonia yelled. "He saw me!" Denise rushed to the car carrying a bag and grabbed Tessa's hand. Fear moved fast between them. Tessa had never seen her mother look like that before, like an animal trying to escape a trap. Then Willie Earl's truck roared into the driveway. He slammed the door so hard the sound echoed across the farm. "What the hell y'all doing?" he shouted. "I'm leaving," Denise shouted back. "You can't stop me." Willie Earl stormed toward them. "Girl, get your ass back in that house." Suddenly, Sonia pulled a gun from her waistband. "Stay back, old man," she warned. "My sister leaving." Everything froze, even the wind. Tessa stared at the gun with wide eyes. Willie Earl stopped walking. "What the hell?" he uttered in disbelief. "Denise," Sonia snapped. "Get in the car." Tessa felt panic rising in her chest as her mother opened the passenger door. Then Willie Earl spoke again. "Tessa, come here." The little girl turned obediently toward her father. He held her hand, and she looked up at him, not fully understanding what was happening. "Let her go," Denise demanded. Willie Earl held her at his side. "You can go," he told Denise coldly. "But she's staying here." Silence swallowed the driveway. Denise looked at Tessa, then at Willie Earl, then back at the open car door. Tessa waited for her mother to fight, to scream, to grab her and run. Instead, Denise slowly got into the car. Tessa realized that moment. Her mother was leaving her. Sonia watched her get in the car. Then she got in, still holding her gun. What you doing? Let's go, Denise stated, with tears starting to stream down her cheeks. You sure? Sonia was confused. This was not how this was supposed to go. Yes, he's using her to make me stay. I can't. Sonia understood and backed her car out past Willie Earl truck. Mama! Tessa screamed as she fought her father's grip. Mama, don't leave me. Denise's tears flowed freely as Sonia sped down the dirt road away from the farmhouse. But she didn't look back. She spent the last 5 years in misery and violence. He never hurt their daughter. He didn't even spank her. She believed he would take good care of her, better than she could. Sonia broke the silence. You think it's safe to leave a little girl with a drunk old man? He loves her, she's his daughter, and he won't hurt her. Denise stated, hoping her words stated out loud would make it true. She didn't want to leave her child behind, but she had to leave. Willie Earl was becoming more violent and was drinking himself to death. She felt like he could die soon and she could get her daughter back. That was her hope, as Tessa cries echoed in her mind. Tessa broke free from her father's grip and ran down the dirt road, sobbing so hard she could barely breathe. Come back! She stumbled and fell hard into the dirt. Willie Earl caught up to her and lifted her into his arms while she kicked and cried against his chest. The car disappeared down the road. It never came back. Inside the farmhouse that night, Willie Earl sat on the couch surrounded by beer cans while the television flickered across the walls. Daddy, Tessa whispered, I'm hungry. He barely looked at her. Can you make a sandwich? Daddy don't feel good right now. He drank his beer. Tessa said yes and went into the kitchen. She grabbed a pack of bologna and sandwich spread. She climbed onto a stool she used to help her mother in the kitchen and made bologna sandwiches for both of them. When she returned, Willie Earl was already passed out drunk. She placed his sandwich carefully beside him anyway. Then she sat alone in the chair, eating quietly, while the television glowed in the darkness. 10 years later, Chapter 2, Graduation. Roads. 10 years changed Tessa from a little girl to young woman, but her life was sadly still the same. At 18, she had grown tall and beautiful with soft brown skin and tired eyes that carried more years than they should have. Most mornings began the same way they always had, with beer cans, silence, and responsibility. The farmhouse always smelled like cigarettes, dust, and old alcohol. Willie Earl sat at the kitchen table that evening, opening his third beer before dinner. The sharp hiss echoed through the quiet house. He saw Tessa coming up to the house from the kitchen window. Tessa came into the kitchen carrying her backpack. You late again, he muttered. You forgot I got graduation activities this week? Willie Earl took a long drink. Just make sure it's graduation activities. Tessa ignored the accusation buried beneath his words. Fix me something to eat, he added. Okay, Daddy. Let me put my school stuff away. She walked to her room, shoulders heavy. Sometimes she wondered if Livingston, Texas will be her home forever, or will she leave after Willie Earl die? She thought about her mother. She wondered if she cared that she finished school. Willie Earl didn't allow her to speak to her mother after she left, but he eventually softened to it. But Denise didn't call or see her daughter. Tessa just imagined she passed away. It made it easier on her mind than to think of a mother who didn't want her anymore. Tessa, I'm coming. She went into the kitchen to start dinner. That night, Willie Earl passed out on the couch after dinner. 5 beer cans sat empty on the coffee table while his snores rattled through the living room. Tessa washed dishes in the kitchen, careful not to make too much noise. Then her phone buzzed. It was Chris. Her face softened instantly. Hey, she whispered. Your old man sleep yet? Tessa glanced toward the living room. Yeah. He out for the night. I got my mama's car. She's sending me for cigarettes. You want to ride with me? A smile spread across Tessa's face. Meet me down the road, she whispered. Say less. She hung up, still smiling. For a few seconds, life felt normal, young, free. Tessa quickly wiped down the counters, grabbed her purse, and slipped past the couch where Willie Earl slept. She opened the front door slowly, praying the hinges wouldn't squeal. Outside, the warm night air wrapped around her. It felt good to her to feel free, if only for a moment. The dirt road glowed silver beneath the moonlight as she hurried toward the curve near the trees. Then headlights appeared. Chris's mother car was a black sports car. Chris pulled up beside her, grinning. The second she climbed into the passenger seat, he kissed her. And suddenly the world felt warm, loving, and she could finally breathe. They drove through the darkness with the windows open while warm wind rushed through the car. Chris looked over at her with excitement burning in his eyes. One more month, he said. Then I'm gone. Tessa smiled softly. My uncle got me a job lined up in Houston. Houston, here I come. Houston. The word sounded magical, like another planet. I'm happy for you, Tessa lied. She didn't want him to leave. You can be happy for us, Chris added gently. Tessa looked down at her hands. You know I can't leave my daddy. Chris sighed. He can get somebody to help him. He needs me. No, Chris said firmly. He made you think he needs you. The truth in his voice stung. Tessa stared out the window at the endless dark fields rolling by. All we ever talked about was leaving Livingston, Chris continued. Since junior high. I know. So what changed? Tessa swallowed hard. Reality. Chris shook his head slowly. You're 18 now, Tess. You supposed to be living your life. She wanted to tell him he was right. She wanted to tell him she dreamed about leaving every single day. But fear rooted itself deep inside her chest. Fear of abandoning Willie Earl, fear of becoming her mother, fear of the unknown. Most of all, fear of freedom itself. Chris pulled into the convenience store parking lot and threw the car into park harder than necessary. You want something? No, she answered. I'm good. He slammed the door behind him. Tessa watched him walk inside beneath the harsh fluorescent lights. The night no longer felt the same. She loved him, maybe more than she'd ever said out loud. And somehow that made everything harder. They rode back in silence, and she felt so sad that the moments with Chris would be gone forever. Graduation arrived beneath a bright Texas sky. Willie Earl actually smiled that morning. He stood in the living room wearing his cowboy hat while Tessa stepped out in her cap and gown. For a moment, pride softened his face. He managed to get his child out of school. He felt the fear of not surviving to this point, that he would pass from his heavy drinking and Tessa would be alone. He spoke to his lawyer and made sure he divorced Denise and that everything he had would go to his only child. He thought Denise would protest, ask for custody, want some of his money or land, but the divorce papers came back signed with nothing from her, not even a call to girl. Look at you, he said with bursting pride. My beautiful angel. Tessa smiled as he took pictures with shaky hands. Moments like this confused her. Because Willie Earl wasn't always mean, sometimes he was just heartbroken, and broken people could still love you. That was what made leaving so difficult. At the high school gymnasium, students crowded together, laughing and hugging, while families filled the parking lot with celebration. Tessa spotted Chris waiting near the school doors. We going to the spot tonight, he whispered with a grin. Gary got his daddy's Mustang. Tessa smiled. Pick me up after my daddy fall asleep. Chris leaned closer. Maybe tonight I can convince you to leave this town with me. Before she could answer, Willie Earl appeared behind her. His eyes immediately narrowed at Chris. Chris felt the tension and he walked toward other graduates, leaving Tessa alone with her father. Who's that boy? he asked, suspicious of the way he saw them talking to each other. That's Chris, Tessa answered carefully. Miss Ann's son. Willie Earl stared at her for a moment. Y'all seem real friendly. He finally stated, We just friends, Daddy. You better not let that boy touch you, he whispered. Tessa lowered her eyes. Why did he have to be the way he was? Always mean and unreasonable, she thought. Okay. She felt so embarrassed, Willie Earl walked toward the truck without another word. Chris looked at them as they were leaving. He felt so frustrated, he wished he was brave enough to confront Willie Earl. Tell him he loved Tessa and he can take care of her, but he was afraid. Willie Earl was old, but he was a big man. Tessa looked trapped. Willie Earl stopped to get a 12-pack of beer on the way back to the farm, and somewhere in the distance, thunder rolled across the Texas sky. Old country music played on the radio while he navigated the dirt road to the farmhouse, and Tessa was waiting for him to drink himself into a stupor so she can have freedom to enjoy the night. Chapter 3. The Spot. By the time the Mustang rolled onto the dirt road that night, Willie Earl had already passed out. Tessa slipped quietly from the farmhouse, her heart pounding harder with every step away from the porch. The night air felt thick and alive. Crickets screamed from the fields while the moon hung low over Livingston like a watchful eye. When the Mustang stopped beside her, Gary's girlfriend, Shayla, leaned forward as she opened the door. Chris smiled the second he saw Tessa. Hey, they greeted. Tessa climbed into the back seat beside him, and the car sped down the road fast. Engine roared as the gravel flew in the air. For the first time in days, she forgot about the farmhouse, forgot about Willie Earl, forgot about responsibility. Tonight she was just 18, just a girl in love, riding through the dark with music playing loud through speakers. The spot sat deep beyond the trees outside town. Everyone in Livingston knew about it. It wasn't really anything special, just an open patch near the woods where people parked, drank beer, kissed, and fell in love among other activities. The Mustang came to a stop beneath the trees. Gary and his girlfriend disappeared quickly into the darkness, laughing. Chris grabbed a blanket from the trunk and held his hand out to Tessa. Come on. She followed him nervously between the trees. We never came here at night, she stated, looking around cautiously. It's dark. Chris smiled and pulled out a small LED lantern. I came prepared. The soft light spilled across the clearing while he spread the blanket across the ground. They sat together beneath the stars. For a while, neither of them spoke. The air smelled like pine trees and summer grass. Far away, someone's music drifted through the woods. Chris leaned back on his elbows, watching her carefully. You really not coming with me? Tessa looked down. Chris, I'm serious. So am I. He sighed heavily. I could make a life for us in Houston. The word us wrapped around her heart painfully. Houston, a city big enough to disappear in, big enough to start over, big enough for dreams. Maybe she finally see her mama. Would she even remember her? You could go to school, he continued. We can get a nice apartment. We could have a good life. Tessa blinked hard against sudden tears. You make it sound easy. It is easy, he said softly. The hard part is deciding you deserve better. His words cut deeper than he realized, because part of Tessa truly believed she didn't deserve better. Not after being left behind, not after growing up inside that old farmhouse, not after spending years believing her purpose was taking care of Willie Earl. She couldn't just abandon him like her mother. Chris reached over and touched her face gently. Come with me. Tessa stared into his eyes. She loved him so much it scared her. But love had already destroyed her family. Her mother loved Willie Earl once. Look how that ended, she thought. I can't, she whispered. Pain flashed across Chris's face. Then he saw the tears in her eyes. He kissed her to apologize for the pressure he knew was tearing her up inside. He kissed her slowly at first, tenderly. Tessa kissed him back harder than she ever had before. It took his breath away. Something inside her opened beneath the moonlight. Maybe it was grief of having to stay behind. Maybe it was fear of never loving like anyone like she loved him. Maybe it was the realization that this could be the last night they'll ever have together. Her hand slid beneath his shirt. Chris pulled back slightly, breathing hard. Tess, I want to. She kissed him passionately again. Here? He asked for confirmation. She nodded. We might never get another chance. The lantern glowed softly beside them while the trees swayed overhead. And beneath the dark Texas sky, Tessa finally chose herself for one single moment. Even though it was painful, it was what she needed to always have a memory of her first love. Later, the Mustang carried them back down the dirt road. No one spoke, just lived in the moment of the countryside. The mood inside the car felt softer now, sad somehow, like everyone could feel the night ending too quickly. When they reached the curve near the farmhouse, Tessa climbed out while Chris followed her. The headlights cast long shadows across the road. Chris wrapped his arms around her tightly. I love you, Tessa, he stated. Always. Tears flowed into her eyes instantly. I love you too. He kissed her softly. I'm going to make a home for us, he promised. And one day you're going to come with me. Tessa tried to smile. Call me when you get home, was all she could say. I will. He kissed her once more before he got in the car. She watched the Mustang disappear into the darkness. Gary drove it fast. Too fast. She walked slowly back toward the farmhouse, looking at the stars in the sky. It was so clear and the moon so bright. It witnessed her become a woman. Inside, Willie Earl still slept on the couch, snoring loudly. Tessa stood there quietly looking at him. Then she picked up a blanket from the recliner and covered him gently. Despite everything, she loved him too. She turned off the television and walked toward her bedroom. Outside, somewhere far down Highway 190, headlights rushed through the night. Fast. Too fast. Chapter 4. Tragedy on the Highway. Sunlight crept through the curtains of Tessa's bedroom while birds chirped outside, like nothing in the world had changed. It was another day beginning under God's blue skies. For one peaceful second, she forgot that Chris didn't call, or maybe she didn't hear her phone. She reached for her phone. Chris never called. A strange feeling crawled into her chest. She dialed his number. The phone rang twice before someone answered. Hello? It was Miss Ann. Tessa was confused at sound of her voice. She never answered Chris's phone. Morning, Miss Ann. Chris still asleep? Silence. Heavy silence. Then she heard something breaking inside the woman on the other end of the line. Baby, Miss Ann stated with her voice shaking. Chris died last night. The room tilted. Tessa stopped breathing for a moment. He got hit by an 18-wheeler. No, Tessa screamed in her thoughts. The word echoed loudly inside her mind. No. The phone slipped from her hand and hit the floor. Her mouth opened, but no sound came out. Pain exploded through her chest so violently she thought her heart might actually stop. Outside her bedroom door, Willie Earl knocked casually. Hey, he called. I'm finna order breakfast. What you want? Tessa covered her mouth to stop herself from screaming out loud. Tears poured instantly down her face. I don't feel good, she choked out. My cramp's bad. Willie Earl's voice softened slightly. You want pain medicine? No. All right. Get some rest. His footsteps moved away down the hallway. The second he disappeared, Tessa buried her face into the pillow and shattered. Willie Earl sat on the couch and popped open his fourth beer. Tessa came up for air and sat in her chair and watched TV with him. Then the local news came on. The anchor's voice sounded calm and distant. A tragic accident on Highway 190 claimed the lives of three Livingston teenagers late Friday night. Pictures appeared on the screen. Chris, Gary, Shayla, all smiling, all gone. A tractor trailer reportedly lost control before colliding with the vehicle they were in. They were pronounced dead at scene. The driver was not injured, but may be facing charges. Tessa stopped hearing the rest. Her chest hurt so badly she thought she might throw up. Willie Earl opened another can of beer. That the boy been sniffing around you? Tessa stared at the television. Yes, she answered with no emotion. You see now why I keep you here? Willie Earl muttered. I keep you safe. Safe. The word made something dark twist inside her stomach. Chris was dead, and somehow Willie Earl sounded satisfied. Tessa stood slowly. I'm going to bed, she stated, fighting her tears that pooled in her eyes. I expect breakfast in the morning, he replied without looking at her. Take some Tylenol. Yes, sir. She walked down the hallway, feeling numb. Behind her, he gulped the beer like a thirsty man in a desert, opened one after another, while Willie Earl drank himself deeper into the couch. The funerals happened a week later. Tessa didn't go. Willie Earl never would have allowed it. He was keeping her safe. She went to Chris's grave after his tombstone was placed on it. She brought him some flowers she picked along the way, blue bonnets and wild sunflowers. She sat there for hours, remembering him from the moment they met in kindergarten to the last day they spent together. Weeks passed, then months. Life became quieter after Chris died. Too quiet. Tessa didn't have a reason to sneaking out, no rides to escape the depression. She stopped smiling. She stopped dreaming about Houston. The farmhouse swallowed her whole again. Every morning she cleaned beer cans off the coffee table, cleaned the house, fixed food for her daddy. Every night she listened to Willie Earl snore in front of the television while she tried to watch it. And every day she carried grief alone. By late summer, Tessa started getting sick. At first she blamed stress, then exhaustion, then cramps. But deep down, she already knew. She sat trembling on the bathroom floor, staring at the pregnancy test in disbelief. Positive. Her hands shook violently. Chris's baby. A sharp knock rattled the bathroom door. Girl, Willie Earl shouted. You been in there forever. We just going to the fall festival. Tessa quickly wiped tears from her face. Shh, I don't feel good. Cramps again? Yes. Take some Tylenol then. She listened to him walk away while she stared down at the test. Fear wrapped around her throat. Not because she was pregnant, because she didn't know what Willie Earl would do when he finds out. Chapter 5. A Taste of Freedom. Willie Earl let her get a part-time job at a diner in town. She felt as if her father finally trusted her. It wasn't trust, it was fear. Willie Earl knew he was only getting older. He knew the alcohol along with old age would take its toll. He taught her how to drive and let her get jobs so she'll learn to take care of herself. Maybe he thought. He'll even let her date. Find a good husband, of course, under his guidance. Tessa didn't know the reason. It just felt good, but she knew it would end soon. It was getting harder to keep hiding her protruding stomach. She prayed daily that she wasn't hurting her baby. She snuck to the clinic on her lunch breaks, and he was okay. She wanted the baby because he was a reminder that her love for Chris was real. Tessa stood inside her bedroom changing clothes after work when Willie Earl suddenly opened the door without knocking. Daddy! She was in her underwear. Her abdomen was fully exposed. He grabbed her arm roughly before she could cover herself. He looked at the bulge of a growing baby in her slim frame. Everything changed instantly. The air, his face. What is that? Tessa stepped backward, trying to get his hand off her arm. What are you doing? She asked, panicking. Willie Earl shoved her hard onto the bed. I knew it, he roared. Who is it? His hand struck her across the face so fast her vision blurred. Shock froze her completely. Tell me. Tessa held her burning cheeks, staring at him in disbelief. It was Chris. Willie Earl looked stunned. The one that died? Yes. When? He shouted. How? Rage boiled over inside her. While you was passed out drunk. The words hit him harder than any slap could have. For the first time in years, Tessa stopped sounding afraid. I'm a woman, she screamed through tears. You can't keep me a little girl forever. Willie Earl raised his hand again, but this time she didn't flinch. She stood up, waiting for him to hit her again. Go ahead, she snapped. Then I'll leave here, just like my mama. Silence crashed between them. Willie Earl stared at her like he no longer recognized his daughter standing before him. Then something inside him broke into pieces. Tessa, he said weakly, I'm sorry. Get out! She screamed. He hesitated. Get out of my room! Willie Earl slowly turned and walked away. And for the first time in her life, Tessa felt stronger than him. Chapter 6. The Final Heartache. Willie Earl walked away slowly. Memories flooded his mind as he grabbed a beer from the refrigerator and sat at the kitchen table. The house felt different now. Too quiet. Too honest. Tessa's words still echoed in his head. You can't keep me a little girl forever. His fingers trembled around the can. For years, he had convinced himself he was protecting her from boys, from mistakes, from the world. But sitting there alone at the kitchen table, Willie Earl finally saw the truth he had been trying to drink away. He took a drink. He felt the cold liquid slide down his throat as he gulped it down. His hand trembled slightly. Old memories rose up like ghosts he could no longer drink away. For the first time in years, Willie Earl felt tired. His soul was tired. He stared down into the beer can and saw flashes of his life. A younger version of himself standing beside Lily beneath church lights. Her soft smile, her white dress, the way she laughed when he told her silly jokes, Lily, his first wife, the only woman who had ever loved him gently. They never had children. God never gave them that blessing. They didn't know if it was him or her, but then she got sick. When cancer took her, the farmhouse became unbearably quiet, too quiet for a man who feared loneliness. That was when the drinking started. Then came Denise, young, beautiful, full of life. He remembered the way she looked at him back then, like he was strong, safe, established, needed. For a little while, Willie Earl felt young again. Then Tessa was born, and for one brief moment, life felt perfect. He smiled weakly through tears gathering in his eyes as he remembered becoming a father. He wasn't sure at first because it happened so fast. Once he knew she was really his, he married Denise because that's respectable men did. He remembered Tessa's tiny hands gripping his finger, her little footsteps running through the house when she first called him daddy. He loved that child more than anything God ever gave him. Maybe too much. His face hardened as he thought about Denise leaving, the screaming, little Tessa running behind that car crying for her mother. Something broke inside him that day, too. He felt Denise wouldn't leave her for long. She would come back, and he would try to control his temper and drink less, but she never did. After that, fear settled deep into his bones. Fear of losing the only person left who still loved him. So he held tighter, stricter, meaner, not realizing love could suffocate. Willie Earl looked toward the hallway leading to Tessa's bedroom. She's pregnant. His baby girl is having a dead boy's child. Dead before he could become a father, dead before he could marry her and make it right. The little girl who used to make him sandwiches while he drank himself unconscious. Now she carrying a man's child. Willie Earl shut his eyes painfully, but sitting there alone at the kitchen table, he finally saw the truth. He failed anyway, just like he failed Lily because he couldn't afford the treatment she needed, just like he failed Denise because he wasn't young enough to love her like she needed. And now Tessa, his only child, hated him. A broken laugh escaped his throat before turning into a sob. Tears rolled down his face. For the first time in years, Willie Earl allowed himself to feel the loneliness underneath the anger. A lonely old man sitting in a farmhouse, holding on to his daughter too tightly because everybody he ever loved eventually walked away or died. He lifted the beer to his mouth again. His hand shook harder this time. Pain suddenly tightened across his chest. Willie Earl frowned. He rubbed his arm slowly. Then the pain exploded. The beer slipped from his hand and crashed against the floor. His breathing turned ragged instantly. Tessa, the word barely escaped his lips before he collapsed beside the kitchen table. And as darkness closed around him, Willie Earl saw Lily standing in sunlight, smiling and waiting peacefully for him. Then everything went still. Inside her bedroom, Tessa sat on the edge of the bed, still shaking from the argument. Part of her felt guilty for what she said to him. Another part felt furious because he hit her. She touched the side of her face where he slapped her. Willie Earl had never hit her. Then she heard the crash. Silence followed, a strange silence. No television, no beer can opening, nothing. Fear crawled up her spine. Daddy, she called as she opened her bedroom door. No answer. Tessa rushed into the kitchen and froze. Willie Earl lay motionless on the floor. The spilled beer spread across the tile beneath him. Daddy? She dropped beside him and shook his shoulder. Nothing. Panic exploded inside her chest. Daddy! Still nothing. Tessa stumbled to her feet and ran for her cell phone with tears blurring her vision. She nearly dropped it trying to dial. 911. What's your emergency? My daddy not breathing, she screamed. Please help me. The operator tried calming her down while she sobbed uncontrollably beside him. But deep down, Tessa already knew. Willie Earl was gone. Chapter 7. Finally, rest in peace. The funeral happened beneath gray skies and cool fall breezes. Tessa wore a simple black dress that stretched over her growing stomach. Most of the people at the service were old drinking buddies and distant church members that knew Lily. They spoke kindly about Willie Earl, like death had erased all his flaws. He loved that girl. Hard worker. Good man deep down. Tessa stood silently beside the grave, listening. She didn't know how to feel. Sadness was tangled together with anger, relief that he didn't suffer mixed with guilt. She had no idea how he would find out or what he would do, but him dying wasn't even a thought, because despite everything, Willie Earl had been her whole world, and now the empty farmhouse waited for her. After the funeral, Tessa drove his old pickup truck slowly back down the dirt road. The same road her mother left years ago, the same road Chris drove on to give her escape. Dust rose behind the truck, while the farmhouse appeared in the distance like an old haggard friend waiting for her return. When she stepped inside, the silence hit her hardest. No television, no snoring, no beer cans being opened over and over, nothing. It was so quiet, unbearable quiet. Tessa sat down in the recliner and stared at the empty couch. Then she curled into herself and cried harder than she had since Chris died. Willie Earl wasn't perfect. He was mean, strict, and an alcoholic, but they had moments when he was kind, taking her to the fall festival every year and letting her eat hot dogs along with cotton candy, then giving her ginger ale when her stomach aches afterwards. He got meaner as she grew up. No boys, ever. No friends over, no parties, just chores. It was suffocating to live with him most of the time. Then she remembered his smile as she wore her cap and gown. Daddy. He was all she knew. She barely remembered her mother. The only memory she couldn't forget was her crying in her bed while she tried to comfort her with her tiny hands. Denise escaped his violence and his drunken ways. Tessa grew tired of memories. She fell asleep in the recliner, holding the funeral program in her hand. Chapter 8. When a Mother Returned. Tessa quit her job at the diner. She could see how people looked at her, whispering. No was alive that knew about her and Chris. Ms. Ann left for Houston to live with her brother. Willie Earl's lawyer gave her the inheritance her father made sure she would get. It was enough that if she was not wasteful, she would be okay for a few years. She would turn the guest room into a nursery once the baby was bigger. In the meantime, she just existed. 2 months had passed. Tessa was laying across the couch watching television in the late evening when headlights appeared outside. A car pulled into the driveway. Tessa sat upright immediately. Nobody ever came to the farmhouse. She slowly walked onto the porch just as a woman stepped from the driver's seat. The woman looked familiar, older, softer, well dressed. She looked at her face and recognized her. Mama? Denise froze. Then tears filled her eyes. Oh my God, she said. You're all grown up. For a second, neither of them moved. Then Denise noticed Tessa's pregnant stomach. Her smile faded slightly. And you're having a baby, she said, surprised. Wow. Tessa crossed her arms. Why are you here? She snapped. Denise gave a nervous laugh. Well, it's nice to see you too. Tessa immediately felt guilty. I'm sorry, she murmured. I just thought I'd never see you again. Denise looked toward the house. Anne told me she heard Willie Earl passed. Tessa's expression changed to sadness. Yes, he died. The words landed heavily between them. When? 2 months ago. For a long moment, neither woman spoke. Then Tessa stepped aside, inviting her in without speaking. Denise walked into the farmhouse slowly, like someone entering a haunted place. The past lingered in every corner, every wall, every door that was slammed. Mother and daughter sat facing each other for the first time in 10 years, and neither one knew where to begin. The farmhouse looked smaller than she remembered. Tessa sat stiffly on the couch while her mother looked around the living room slowly, taking in the faded curtains, old furniture, and deep silence hanging over everything. You been living here by yourself? Denise asked. Tessa nodded. I'm used to it. Denise frowned. In your condition? Tessa rested a hand over her stomach protectively. Daddy didn't let me go anywhere, so I'm used to being alone. Guilt flashed across Denise's face. You had to have had friends. Tessa looked at Mother, thinking I had a friend. Obviously, I snuck out. Denise studied her carefully. Then something fearful crossed her expression. Did he touch you? Tessa's head snapped toward her instantly. What? Denise swallowed hard. I'm just saying, the way you talking, him keeping you isolated. That's disgusting, Tessa cut in sharply. My daddy wasn't like that. Relief flooded Denise's face immediately. It's Chris's baby, Tessa continued. Denise lowered her eyes. Oh, Anne didn't tell me that. She doesn't know, Tessa stated. Silence stretched between them, the kind filled with years neither knew how to explain. Finally, Denise looked back up. Are you mad at me? Tessa stared at her mother for a long moment. Then she laughed bitterly. Yes. The honesty hung heavy in the room. If you thought Daddy was so terrible, Tessa asked, why you leave me here with him? Denise looked like she'd been slapped. I didn't think he'd hurt you. He hit me when he found out I was pregnant. Denise closed her eyes painfully. I'm sorry. You knew how he was. Yes, Denise stated, but he never hit you when you were little. He saved all that for me. Tessa folded her arms tightly again. Why you leave? Denise looked down at her hands. I had to. The words came out barely above a whisper, and for the first time, Tessa saw something she had never noticed as a child. Fear. Not old fear. Not memory. Fresh fear. Like some part of Denise still expected Willie Earl to walk through the door yelling. How old are you? Tessa asked suddenly. Denise blinked. 38. Tessa stared at her in disbelief. My daddy was 65. Denise laughed softly without humor. He wasn't always old. Tessa waited quietly while her mother looked toward the window. I was 20 when I met him, Denise admitted. And stupid. The room fell silent except for the ticking kitchen clock. He was handsome back then, she continued. Confident. Had land, money, stability. I thought an older man would take care of me. Instead, he trapped you, Tessa stated for her. Denise gave a sad smile. Maybe I trapped myself first. Tessa listened carefully. Nobody had ever explained her parents to her before. Not honestly. My mama was mean, Denise continued. Meaner than Willie Earl. Tessa frowned. What happened? Denise leaned back slowly. She drank all day. beat me and Sonia whenever she got mad. I spent my whole childhood trying not to make her angry. Pain clouded her eyes. When Sonia ran away to Houston, I wanted out too. Then here come Willie Earl, acting kind and mature and safe. She laughed bitterly. I thought I found freedom. Tessa looked down, remembering her father, how she heard him crying when he thought she was asleep. Did you love him? Denise thought about it for a long time. I loved what I thought he could give me, she admitted. And me? A soft smile touched Denise's face for the first time. You were the best thing that ever happened to me. Tears instantly burned in Tessa's eyes. Then why didn't you come back or call? Denise's face crumbled. I wanted to. 10 years, Mama. I know. The guilt in her voice sounded real. I slept on your Aunt Sonia's couch for 2 years, Denise said, feeling judged by her only child. Worked jobs, cleaning houses, got my GED, tried getting stable enough to fight for you. What happened? Denise looked ashamed. Time. It got away from me. She was too afraid to admit it felt good to be free. No Willie Earl and no child needing her. How could she tell the truth without making her hate her like she did her own mother? Tessa shook her head angrily. That's not good enough. I know it ain't. Denise snapped suddenly. I cried for months after leaving you. Tessa stared at her, stunned. I hated myself every day, but I kept thinking, at least you had a house, food, stability. A prison, Tessa added. Yes, Denise agreed painfully. But I was scared if I took you with me, I'd ruin you too. The room fell silent again. Outside, wind moved softly through the trees lining the dirt road. Finally, Tessa spoke. I don't hate you. Denise looked up quickly, relieved to hear her say that. But I don't understand you either. Tears slipped down Denise's cheeks. That's fair. Tessa glanced through the window toward the shiny car parked outside. Nice car. Denise smiled weakly. Got a V8 engine. Tessa stared at it quietly. Chris died in a fast car. The words came out softer than expected. Pain immediately filled the room again. You can't go very fast in a raggedy pickup truck, Tessa whispered. Then she broke. Years of grief and loneliness spilled out of her all at once. Chris, Willie Earl, being abandoned, being trapped, being scared, everything. Denise stood quickly and reached into her purse. She wasn't expecting her to be so emotional and pregnant on top of that. It was overwhelming. I should go, she said softly, placing a card on the coffee table. I didn't mean to upset you. Here is my information if you need to reach me. She walked toward the front door, slowly. Tessa didn't stop her. She didn't say a word. Outside, Denise reached for the car door. Then she froze. Somewhere deep in her memory, she heard a little girl screaming down a dirt road. Mama, don't leave me. Denise shut her eyes tightly. Her daughter needed her more than ever. She couldn't leave again. She turned around and walked back into the farmhouse. Tessa looked up in surprise as her mother crossed the room toward her. I'm sorry, Denise said through tears. I'm sorry I left you here. It may not be enough, but it's all I got. I'm here now. Tessa's lip trembled. I love you, Denise said, and I hope one day you can forgive me. I can't leave you here like this. Tessa stood slowly. Then, like the frightened little girl she used to be, she wrapped her arms tightly around her mother and held on. Mama, she sobbed, I'm scared. Denise held her daughter close. I'm here, baby, she stated. I ain't never leaving you again. Chapter 9. Highway to Houston. Morning sunlight spilled across the farmhouse porch as Tessa carried the last suitcase outside. The screen door creaked softly behind her. She paused for a moment and looked back at the old farmhouse one final time. The faded wood, the broken gutters, the porch where Willie Earl used to sit drinking beer at sunset. For years, that house had felt like a prison. Now it felt like a grave. Denise stood beside the car, watching her daughter lock the front door. She saw the look she had. This was where she was born, where she took her first steps. She lived all her young life in those walls. You ready? She asked gently. Tessa looked down at her stomach. Her new beginning lived within her, and she remembered praying to God to help her in her loneliness. Her mother was the help she felt he sent. Denise was stable now, a business owner, and she wanted to finish what she started when she became a mother and share everything she built with her only child. She wasn't expecting a grandchild so soon, but she will make sure he has everything. Tessa looked toward the endless dirt road stretching away from the farm. No, she admitted honestly. I know it's not easy for you. Denise stated. Tessa placed the suitcase into the trunk and climbed into the passenger seat. The engine roared to life beneath them, a deep, powerful sound. You will okay with me, I promise, Denise said with a faint smile. Tessa looked out the window quietly. Fast cars scare me now. Denise nodded in agreement. She's been through so much in such a short time. I won't drive too fast. The car rolled slowly down the dirt road, past broken fence posts, past dying fields, past memories neither of them could outrun. But before they reached the highway, Tessa suddenly spoke. Stop! Denise glanced over. What's wrong? The graveyard. I want to say goodbye. The small country cemetery sat beneath a cluster of old oak trees just outside Livingston. Wind moved softly through the grass as Tessa stepped from the car, holding two bouquets of white flowers. Denise followed behind her silently. Rows of weathered tombstones stretched beneath the Texas sun. Tessa walked carefully until she reached a fresh grave. She froze. The dirt still looked dark and newly settled. The headstone stood simple and gray beneath the morning light. William Earl Thomas May, you finally have peace. Tessa's eyes immediately filled with tears. For a long moment, she simply stared. Then she slowly knelt and placed the flowers against the stone. I was so angry at you, she stated, her voice trembled. Wind rustled through the trees above her. You loved me the only way you knew how, even when it hurt. She wiped fresh tears off her cheeks. I wish things could have been different. Tears flowed freely down her cheeks as she touched the cold stone gently. Behind her, Denise stood silently crying too. Regret weighed heavily across her face. Not just regret for Willie Earl, but for all of it. The fighting, the fear, the years lost between mother and daughter. I'm sorry too, Denise whispered softly toward the grave. For all of us. Tessa lowered her head and cried quietly, hoping the pain would disappear. She learned that grief and love could exist together. Forgiveness began there. She walked to Christopher's grave and placed the flowers in front his tombstone. Thank you for loving me. You made my life here bearable, and I'll tell your son about you. He'll know who you were in life, and to me. She kissed her fingers and touched the stone. I'll love you, always. Tessa looked back at her mother. I'm ready now. An hour later, the city skyline of Houston rose in the distance. Tall buildings shimmered beneath the afternoon sun while traffic rushed endlessly around them. Tessa stared through the window in awe. So many people, she murmured. Denise laughed softly. You get used to it. The city felt loud, alive, nothing like Livingston, nothing like the farmhouse. For the first time in years, Tessa felt the future opening in front of her instead of closing around her. Denise finally pulled into the parking lot of a small diner. What's this place? Tessa asked. It's mine. Denise beamed with pride. City folks love country cooking. Come on, she said. Somebody wants to see you. Tessa stepped inside behind her. The smell of coffee and fresh food filled the air. Then she heard a familiar voice. Tessa? She turned quickly. Miss Anne stood near the counter, staring at her in shock. For a moment, neither of them moved. Then Miss Anne rushed forward and wrapped her arms tightly around her. Oh my goodness, she said emotionally. Look at you. Tessa fought tears instantly. I missed you. She stated Miss Anne pulled back, smiling warmly through watery eyes. Then she noticed Tessa's stomach. Her expression softened immediately. Oh, baby. Tessa looked down nervously before meeting her eyes again. "You're going to be a grandmother." The words made something open inside Miss Anne. She missed her son so much. She knew how he felt about Tessa. She warned him about Willie Earl and didn't think it was a good idea. It was obvious he didn't listen. She covered her mouth and began crying. "Oh, Chris," she said tearfully. "He would have loved this baby." Tessa started crying too, but this time the tears felt different. Not empty, not hopeless. Healing. Miss Anne held her face gently. "You're not alone anymore," she promised. Behind them, Denise watched quietly while sunlight spilled through the diner windows. Three broken people, three survivors, one from abuse, one from loss and grief, one from isolation, and now a new family. Outside, cars rushed endlessly through Houston streets beneath the bright Texas sky, fast and free. Thank you for joining me on this journey through Fast Car. We traveled dusty back roads, sat inside old farmhouses, felt the sting of loss, and witnessed the power of forgiveness. We watched a little girl grow into a young woman. We saw how pain can pass from one generation to the next, but we also saw how healing can begin when someone finds the courage to break the cycle. Tessa's story reminds us that the people who hurt us are often carrying wounds of their own. It doesn't excuse the pain they cause, but sometimes understanding their humanity helps us find peace with our own. As Tessa rode with her mother toward Houston, she wasn't leaving her past behind. She was carrying it with her. The good memories, the painful memories, the lessons, and the love. Because healing isn't forgetting. Healing is learning how to move forward while honoring where you've been. To the person listening to my audiobook, if you're carrying old hurts, if you're struggling to forgive, if you're trying to build a better future than the one you were given, keep going. Your story isn't over. There's still another road ahead. My name is Felisa Linwood, and I want to thank you for spending this time with me. If you enjoyed this audiobook, please like, subscribe, and share it with someone who loves powerful stories about family, resilience, and hope. Leave a comment on how this story made you feel. Love deeply, forgive when you can, and never stop believing that a better tomorrow may be waiting just beyond the next turn in the road.